What if Yoda was at the Jedi Temple? To start off, we're just going to say that another Jedi took his place on Kashyyyk, and in this instance, I chose Agen Kolar as the one to leave, but it could really be anyone. We will start at Yoda's room at the Jedi Temple. As per usual, he was meditating, staying in tune with the Force. He was urgently awakened by Mace Windu, who told him with a calm but somewhat worried voice, telling him that the Chancellor may be a Sith Lord. Yoda had felt something for quite some time, and now his worst nightmare had possibly come true. He followed Windu and met up with Master Fisto and Tin. Anakin was also there, but clearly not in the right mind space. Anakin told Yoda everything that he told Windu, and he then asked to join them to arrest the Chancellor. Windu immediately struck the offer down, saying that he is clearly not in the right mental space. But Yoda overruled Windu and wanted Anakin to go. Whether this was the right decision or not, they didn't know, and they wouldn't know because all of their minds were fogged by the Chancellor. They eventually arrived at the Chancellor's office. Yoda and Windu entered first. The Chancellor swiveled around and clearly not surprised. Although he wasn't surprised, he still was quite worried seeing the two most powerful Jedi. They repeated again and again, yelling for him to surrender. The Chancellor stood up and directly addressed Anakin, who was standing just outside the room in the doorway. He started to warn Skywalker that he is the only powerful enough Force user who can save Padme. But before he could finish, Yoda force closed the door, leaving Windu and himself and the Chancellor in the office. Which means that Skywalker, Tin, and Fisto were in the lobby. Anakin could still hear the mumbles of the negotiations. In the office, Palpatine was getting more and more nervous, knowing that he was surrounded and there wasn't really anywhere he could escape. Eventually, Palpatine realized that there was no other option, and so he pulled his sabers and sped towards the Jedi Masters. Anakin immediately started panicking, hearing the sabers clashing in the office. Fisto tried calming him down, but it was to no use. Anakin began mumbling about Padme and the Chancellor. It appeared Windu was right, and now the two Jedi Masters accompanying Skywalker began feeling uneasy at the situation at hand. They thought about the fight happening in the next room, but they both knew Anakin was feeling less and less strong on the light side. Suddenly he jumped back and pulled his saber, yelling for Fisto and Tin to let him in. They refused, but still hadn't drawn their sabers. They continued to attempt to defuse the situation, but it was to no avail, and eventually he swung at Tin, who managed to somewhat dodge the attack, but he was sliced above the knee, leading to a yelp of pain. Yoda and Windu immediately heard the shriek and knew what was happening. Although they were powerful and wise masters of the Force, they weren't familiar with a Sith Master, especially one like this who had mastered all seven forms. Palpatine smirked with a smile of delight, knowing that his plan had come to fruition in the other room. Fisto pulled his saber, yelling for Anakin to surrender, but he was beyond redemption. He refused and swung on Fisto, who blocked his attack, and now another duel began. The Chancellor began to work his way towards the door and opened it. He jumped back into the room. Now the two separate fights merged into one. Stacey Tin, already at a disadvantage, managed to escape. The rest were in a heated fight, spinning and swinging, a clash that hadn't been seen for at least a millennia. Anakin began to fill with rage. It felt like he finally had an ally who respected him besides Obi-Wan. Throughout the duel, Palpatine was awakening Anakin's rage, bringing up every trespass the Jedi had done against him. And it worked. He swung with strength like never seen before, throwing off 3 Jedi. Eventually, the Jedi had been worn down enough for the duo to escape. They began closing and breaking doors, and they did that to multiple doors on the way to the exit. But that wouldn't stop the Jedi pursuers, as they began to cut the door, and while doing this, they contacted Sazy Tin to see if he had made it out. They told him to beware of the Sith duo who presumably would be going to the hangar, but Tin let them know that he had gathered clones and was awaiting their arrival to arrest them. Immediately, Kit Fisto pleaded with him not to risk his life, and there was no way they could arrest the powerful duo. But he refused and said that it was his duty as a Jedi Master to put his life on the line for the good of the galaxy. They told him they were coming and should just stay alive as long as they can. And as soon as they turned off their comms, Sidious and Anakin opened the door to the hangar before they were stopped in their tracks. Tin and around 20 troops were in front of them, holding them at gunpoint. Tin yelled at them to surrender, and he told them that he had no patience. Sidious started laughing maniacally, even shocking Anakin. Then Sidious pulled out a hologram and spoke into it.
Execute Order 66.
Tin just stared at him somewhat confused, and then suddenly all of the clones turned their guns on Master Tin, with no second to spare. He pulled down the ceiling tiles directly down upon himself. He sliced through the ceiling, saving himself, but the rest fell on the clones near him. The few remaining clones fired upon him. He blocked a few shots and sliced one down, but there was nothing he could do, as he was shocked in the back by Sidious, pushing him to a clone who shot him through the stomach, which dropped him to the floor. The clones were about to finish the Jedi Master, but Sidious yelled for them to stand down. Sidious dragged his body across the floor up to Anakin. Sidious called the turned Jedi to kill Saesee Tin. Anakin was unsure. He could do this to a Sith, but not to a Jedi. But he remembered what truly mattered: Padme, and he knew Saesee Tin didn't matter nearly as much as Padme. Padme is his whole world, and he would trade anything for her. With one swing, he sliced Saesee Tin from shoulder to hip, confirming his loyalty to Sidious. The rest of the Jedi Masters were still slicing the doors open, but Yoda could feel the deaths of tons of Jedi. He could feel the fall. They made it to the hangar only to see the carnage that had been left, as well as Master Tin slain on the ground. Meanwhile, at the Jedi Temple, Anakin and Palpatine arrived with the 501st. The slaughter had begun. No Padawan, nor Knight, nor Master was spared. The Jedi Master trio arrived shortly after. The temple was in ruin, with bodies on every walkway. They quickly searched the temple for any survivors, and eventually they stumbled upon a group of Jedi Knights and Padawans in a janitorial room. They told their accounts of the massacre. This attack was unlike anyone ever seen. They could hear the killing and knew that there must be other survivors, and they knew that at least one more master was alive as they warned Shaak Ti of the incoming attack. Their biggest priority was to destroy the beacon that they presumed would be turned on so that the Sith could kill most of the Jedi. They forced their way through every hall, slicing down every clone in sight until they cleared most of the temple. Then they escaped into a transport and fled to the nearest cargo ship and snuck aboard. It was no use to fight for Coruscant. They were outgunned and outmatched. They fled to Alderaan and were given a safe space to stay until they could figure something out. Bill was one of, if not the only one to take them in, and they knew that they could trust him. They also brought Padme along. They knew that Anakin was willing to do anything for Padme, and she was a good bargaining chip. They had tracked Anakin's movement and had realized that he was going to Mustafar. This time, Yoda didn't send Obi-Wan alone. Rather, he, Windu, Obi-Wan would accompany Padme to sway Anakin. Once they first sent Obi-Wan out. He attempted to negotiate with Anakin, but their brotherly bond was blocked by Anakin's foolishness. As soon as they had drawn their sabers, the rest of the Jedi walked out with Padme alongside them. Now his rage was undeniable. Yoda made a wise judgment, and Palpatine matched that judgment by having the Grand Inquisitor, 13th sister, and 4th sister along with Anakin. Immediately, a fight broke down. The fight seemed somewhat even, but eventually Anakin and Obi-Wan were separated from the group and traversed the lava rivers that ran through Mustafar. They had an intense duel that led to the same events that happened in the Revenge of the Sith. Yoda and Windu were much more powerful compared to the sisters and the Grand Inquisitor. Yoda began to focus on the Grand Inquisitor, realizing that he was the biggest threat. On the other hand, Windu was mopping the floor with the sisters, and he eventually slain one and nearly mortally injured the other. Eventually, Sidious arrived with his Coruscant guards. Immediately, they fought off the two Jedi Masters and Obi-Wan, who had managed to return to the rest of the group. They jumped in their ship and fled. I suppose this will be the end of the video. I feel like there's much more possibilities I can get into, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But as for this video, we're just going to end with them leaving Mustafar, and now there's, probably around 30 Jedi left, at least to, the galaxy's knowledge. So I just want to say thanks for watching and bye.